Welcome into the unofficial podcast of the Pirates, the Sports Objective. 50 Pirates and 50 days. What's up, Kyle Barber? How are you, man?
What's going on, Dave? How are things in Martin County?
Good. I guess we're going to have breakfast with Bubba today.
Good morning, guys. Looking forward to talking some Pirate football as always.
And with us, we got a very special guest.
Yep, as you see there on the bottom left of your screen, a guy that played for Sonny Randle in the Pirates back in 71 and 72 and also spent his time on 3 different East Carolina staffs. Welcome in, Coach Kirk Doll.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Coach, glad to have you with us. I know that you were definitely a lifelong Pirate, and we appreciate all your service to the Purple and Gold. How can you talk about your recruiting process back with, I believe it was Sonny Randle, or is it with Mike McGee?
Both.
Okay.
Basically, when it started out, Coach McGee, I was in a junior college, Hutchinson Junior College, and Coach McGee started recruiting me. Carl Reese, who was the defensive coordinator, came out and to Hutchinson, Kansas, and we discussed some things. And from there, then Coach McGee left and went to Duke, and so then Coach Randle took over. And back then, East Carolina was on the quarter system. So anyway, I came the third quarter of the spring for spring practice.
No question about it. With spring practice, Coach, with everything going on right now, how difficult is it as a coach when you have a situation where spring practice didn't? Some people got a little bit of spring practice, or all of it, or most didn't get any spring practice when it comes to college football. How bad was that for the players and coaches?
Well, when you're dealing with the young players, obviously the actual on the field experience is that's some of the things that's very, very important for them to have an opportunity to compete for a job. I think there was some classroom instruction, which helps, but each player learns differently. And so missing those opportunities in spring were very much an issue.
Coach, backtracking to your days at East Carolina as a player under Sonny Randle. So talk about Coach Randle and the success he had. I know some Pirates have mixed feelings about Coach Randle because leaving for Virginia and all that, but he had a lot of success while he was here.
He more or less, in my opinion, gave East Carolina that little extra boost of confidence that they belonged up in the upper echelon of college football. And he had a great deal of confidence that he was going to have this program rise to the top, which he did through a lot of hard work. He had some great assistant coaches that helped. And we had a little bit of Vince Lombardi in our two-a-days because that's who Sonny played for his last year in the NFL. And so there was a lot of players that made it through, and in the long run, it paid off for them. And obviously, we beat State for the first time in the school's history. And then the following year went on to win the Southern Conference Championship. And there was continuation, obviously, of success there in the conference. And he built a really nice program for Coach Dye to come in who furthered that program along.
What was it like being North Carolina State for the first time? I mean, I would imagine the reaction when you guys got back to campus from the student body and from the local news in Greenville had to be a big moment back then when you guys beat the Wolfpack.
Well, like I said, Coach Randle, he wanted to make sure that we knew how important that victory was. And so when we came back in the buses, he toured us around downtown. And so we went down the streets a couple times, and obviously the student body was out there just, a typical Saturday night in Greenville downtown. And it was really a neat experience. It really was.
Coach, what about when you were talking about practice? One of the things the former players talk about with 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. How hard was it when you said Vince Lombardi style? I'm sure that was not a walk in the park or a cupcake city when it comes to a practice.
Well, when we get together, the team, some of the teammates and all that. That's one of the first things we talk about is Coach Randle had what he called the circus at the end of practice. And it was a circuit around the field. I think there was 8 different exercises that you did, which is conditioning of some sort. And it was one of the things that you couldn't say nowadays, but back then Coach Randle would always say, you'll pass out before you die. And so anyway, it was difficult. I worked hard like everybody else did. And I was being moved from a defensive end position to defensive tackle. So I worked all summer hard to get my weight up to 225. And by the time 2 days was over, I was down to 215. So it was pretty difficult.
Coach, kind of veering away from the East Carolina talk just for a moment, with you being from Wichita and being out there, just talk about what happened. Most people think with 1970, you think of the Marshall plane crash, but the same thing happened right around that same time, with the Shockers. So, what are your memories of that?
I'll tell you what, it was. I was, like I mentioned, I was getting recruited by East Carolina. I was also getting recruited by Wichita State. And Wichita State obviously had the plane crash the same year. They had 2 planes that were going out to Utah. I think they're playing Utah State. And they lost a number of coaches and players in the one plane that went down. And they decided to play a game in I think it was early November, excuse me. And I was invited to come to that game. And it was an unbelievable experience because it was one of the biggest crowds I ever had, but the experience of the sense of loss of the players, but the other players that were obviously still having a chance to play, they wanted to play for those people that passed away. So then going to East Carolina and hearing about that situation in Marshall, I'm really excited about, happy for East Carolina and Marshall to be able to play this game coming up in September because it's a really neat experience.
Are you
Coach,
surprised?
November 14th.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say November 14th, 1970 is a date that will live with us forever because unfortunately we are tied to the Marshall tragedy. However, I think that Kyle and Bubba and I have talked about a long time, Coach, being it's a regional game with both schools, I think it makes sense for us to play on a regular basis.
It's obviously we were playing them when we're in the same conference, but I think it's a special game, and I have a tendency to agree with you. Don't really care to travel to Huntington, but anyway, it's a good matchup.
Yeah, it's a bit of we've talked to players that played under Ruffin McNeill and players that played under Skip Holtz, and both the groups of players identified Marshall as their favorite conference game, with Southern Miss being second. And always great games. I mean, obviously there's the history with the plane crash, which is terrible, but going back to the GMAC Bowl in 01, we've played 3 overtime games against those guys. I mean, it is always a war with the Thunder and Herd, and great football games.
Well, the last time with Ruffin at home was just an exciting game, which was in overtime, and that was a very real special win. It really was.
Yeah, 2012. I think it was either 1 overtime or 2 overtimes. Hard to remember now. 60-some points scored. Back and forth game all night. Shane Carden driving us. Who caught the touchdown to send us into overtime, guys? Was it Weaver? Not Bobby Weaver. Lord, I'm way back in time.
I know you're talking about Danny Webster.
Danny Webster. I know it was a white guy with a W for a last name. Was it Webster?
Well, anyway, it was an exciting game, and when Marshall fumbled the ball, I think it's about the plus 32 or 3, and we recovered it. It was really something.
And that was, of course, Coach, your first year back on staff with Coach Ruff. I guess it was, what, was it 2008, guys, when Terry Holland made that move to put the memorial, the plaque over by the visiting locker room?
I think it was those 06. I think it was those 06. But I believe it was the first time back in Greenville since the plane crash, which would have been 06.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Well, that rivalry, Coach, back in your day, being a player, what was NC State, I would guess, the biggest rival you had, or were there others in the SoCon?
Well, back then, a lot of people, and just being here for a couple seasons, they talked about Southern Miss, and that was what they talked about a lot. Obviously, having the opportunity to go play North Carolina State, and in fact, my senior year we played North Carolina as well. Everybody was real excited about playing those games.
Yeah, if you ask East Carolina fans who they want back on the schedule that we don't play anymore, it is always Southern Miss.
Yeah. So we felt. In fact, I think the game that we played Southern Miss was at home, and it was like a 14-10 game or something like that.
Very exciting with all the different games, and certainly I want to get your take, Coach, with having Coach Houston here. What do you think about Coach Houston? And I know there's some guys that very familiar faces on the staff now that you know very well.
Well, I think, and I appreciated Coach giving me the opportunity he gave me last year. There is some I think he has a very good staff. Coach Shankweiler and I coached together at Florida International, and of course Donnie Kirkpatrick and I were together with Coach McNeill, and Trip Weaver was a graduate assistant for us with Coach McNeill, and so I enjoy they have a lot of flavor of East Carolina on the staff, and a good group of people.
Yeah, and I think obviously you're not around them right now, but even with the pandemic and no spring ball and this weird fall practice where we're having to suspend practice for positive tests, you just get the sense from Coach Houston and the staff they have a lot more confidence going into this year than they did last year, and I'm sure that's just the familiarity from year 1 to year 2. But even with all the stuff surrounding it, the guys they seem confident to me.
Well, I think anytime, I think it's not the same thing, but the number of practices they'll have before the first game is going to be pretty much close to having spring practice and fall practice before the first game. I think there's 30 some odd practices that they're going to have. And so normally you have 15 in the spring, then you have 27, I believe. So they're going to be relatively close to having it all together, not have it split up. So obviously the transition from year 1 to year 2 is always easier because some of the problems you've corrected and some of the problems, the potholes, where they're at, and so you can avoid them.
Coach, what about as far as the roster is concerned? Those guys coaching on the staff last year. What about? It seems to me there's a lot of talent that we have, young talent that have just got to be coached up, and then we have some other guys that are ready to play, obviously. And then with the great job that Coach Houston and the staff have done recruiting, it's only a matter of time before they get over the hump.
Well, there's a good mixture of, like you said, of experience and youth. And a lot of times when you have those experienced players, they do a good job of helping bring the younger players on as well as the coaches. And that's an important thing. As we know, a lot of the young people always like to follow the older people. So I'm sure they'll have an excellent year. They got it. One of the things that you always talk about is experience at quarterback. And of course, Holton's been experienced for a couple of years now. And so he's a key figure in operation of things. So I'm sure they'll do well.
Coach, what was it like for you being an alum and then being on staff, beating North Carolina back-to-back years in 13 and 14?
it was it was awesome, and it's interesting. I was recruiting after we had beat them by, what was it, 70 something to whatever, and it was in the spring, and I was at a restaurant, and one of the people said, "Don't you coach at East Carolina?" I said, "Yes, I do." And there happened to be a North Carolina person sitting close to where I was at. And so all of a sudden I said, "Hey, I don't want to get in any arguments here because there's so much pride in those victories. And obviously it's a sore spot for the Tar Heels." So no, but those victories and the victories over Virginia Tech and North Carolina State just it shows you how far the program's come, and that it's going to continue that way. Okay, and I think it's going in the right direction.
And Coach, with all your coaching experience, you got to have recruits, you've got to have talent to put on the field, but also with coaches getting along. It seems like with the staff that we have now, you have that inside look of last year. It seems like that we're at a good place with all the coaches. As far as I know, not everybody has the same personality or same background, but it looks like the group of coaches we have now are really good, well-oiled machine.
Well, there's always opportunities for people to come forward. Like Coach Weaver used to be a young GA, and he's made some great strides in learning, and I know he'll do a great job. And then when you have the experience of Steve and Donnie, there's good things are going to happen.
Especially with Trip Weaver, the very fat coach. I mean, he was going to be the boss, so to speak, on defense at Western Carolina, and he comes back to be a position coach at East Carolina. It says a lot about him. It says a lot about how much he loves the program and how much he loves, like, I would take Mike Houston.
Well, and I agree with you totally there, and I think Tripp and Coach Houston have a story that goes way back, and they know each other pretty well.
You can get, for our viewers and listeners out there, guys, we apologize for the audio feedback. We can't figure out what it's coming from. So if you're hearing that static or digital noise in the background, we apologize, but just enjoy the interview anyway. Coach, wanted to ask you, you're living in Baton Rouge now. You coached down for the Tigers when they won a national championship under Nick Saban. Talk about your relationship with Coach Saban.
Well, Coach Saban has been a major part of my career in terms of working for him for 2 years. I learned a great deal about the game, not just X and O's, which he knows a great deal of, but more how to practice with the players and how to get the most out of your time on the field. And I learned a lot of different things there. He's a guy that is always looking for an edge and always trying to find a way to help that player become a better, all the way around, better person, better student, and also a better player. So he's always trying to find something, whether it's a karate class to help them use their hands. They have some people that will come and do some analysis on how those people learn the best and how they get coached the best. And they give you ideas of, there's certain players that you can maybe be hard on and give them, get on them pretty good. There's other people that you got to kind of do a different way of teaching them how to do the right thing. And
Coach,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say with one of the things I heard him say, he and his wife, was the very fact that, I think it was after a national championship run or something a few years back, but he was talking about how at Alabama, you really can't enjoy the winning as much because he said it wasn't the enjoyment, it was relief. Because knowing that if you lose that big game, the Iron Bowl, or you lose the SEC championship, or you lose the national championship, that is so much pressure there at Alabama. Do you get that sense from him, knowing him personally?
Well, I think he thrives on that in terms of the pressure. and that's why he's very focused on always trying to find an edge. And he's I think he's one of the all-time best. I really do. And he will, I think, probably coach a lot longer than he says he will, just because it's something that he not only enjoys, but it gives him the opportunity to help people in a lot of different ways.
Coach, you hear so many things. Who knows if it's true? But I've heard somebody say he's actually a player's coach, but who he's hard on is his assistant coaches. Is that accurate?
Well, what I learned in my time with him was he expects you to work. You know, like when you're assistant coach, the head coach, you're there to please the head coach. It's not the head coach is going to please the assistant. And the thing that I learned from him in that regard was that he expects you to work as hard as he works, and he gave you opportunities to enjoy your family and those type things. And he's a very loyal person to you once you work for him. In that he has done a lot of different things for me after I left him. And anyway, he's a good man.
Someone you also had the opportunity to work with there in the 1990s. Talk about being on staff with Lou Holtz at Notre Dame.
Well, Coach Holtz, I was with Coach Holtz for 3 years, and the people that worked there at that time, there's probably, Bob Davie obviously became the head coach after Coach Holtz left, and we had a couple people, Jimmy Coletto, who he became the head coach. He's head coach at Purdue, went in the league. There's a number of guys that left Notre Dame and went into the NFL. And there was some of them that stayed in college and ended up coaching at FIU with Ron Cooper, who had been there before I got there. And Ron's an excellent coach who's been around. And so there was a lot of good people. Tommy Clements went to Green Bay and coached a lot, who had played at Notre Dame. And so it was a good experience. It was a good experience.
Coach,
My longest tenure too.
Hey, Coach, there's folks talking in the talking heads of you are talking about if you don't think this world is crazy, how about Notre Dame being in a conference in football, being in the ACC this year? That's just crazy.
Well, there's so many traditions there, and a lot of them I think are very, very good. For them, obviously the virus has created a situation where they had to make a decision, and that's obviously a very political thing there at Notre Dame in South Bend. And I'm sure there's some factions that are excited about it, and there's some others that probably aren't.
Yeah, it's interesting as an independent. They had to do something. BYU, for example, is sticking at it with an independent schedule this year and putting together a patchwork schedule of a hodgepodge of teams. But Notre Dame, so high profile, wasn't going to do that. So they really had no other choice.
Well, I saw where actually I think Army had to do the same thing. Did they?
They did, yeah.
And I know there's some teams here in the state of Louisiana, like the Louisiana Monroe, where they lost 2 big money games with the Southeastern Conference, and so they're trying to keep their program going, and so they're able at least to get a game with Army and kind of keep the schedule going somewhat.
Yeah.
Coach, we've talked about your time on Coach Saban and Coach Holtz's staff on another big-time program that you had 2 separate stints that were quite a ways apart at was Texas A&M. So we talk about those times you spent in College Station.
Well, it seemed like, first of all, God's blessed me in a lot of different ways with my family and my career. And our time in College Station, I was with Coach Sherrill for 1 season, which was very interesting. And then, fortunately, R.C. Slocum became the head coach, and RC retained me. And he is more or less the person that hired me the first time. And so we had 6 great years, unbelievable seasons, 3 conference championships with the Southwestern Conference, and a lot of success. And RC was just a great coach to work for. And we went, I think we played, well, in fact, we played Notre Dame twice in the Cotton Bowl, and we got beat both times. But it was interesting that Coach Holtz wanted to hire Bob Davie as the defensive coordinator. And so that's kind of how that deal got going. And then when Bob went to Notre Dame, I was able to, at one point, follow with him to coach defense for Coach Holtz.
You missed it, Jackie. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on you there. You mentioned Jackie Sherrill briefly. 1 year A&M. Jackie Sherrill's a guy I always remember at Mississippi State. He seemed like he had a very big personality.
He's very outgoing, and he had a lot of exuberance and confidence, similar to Coach Randle.
Okay.
And he did a lot of good things at Texas A&M, and in fact, he was the athletic director as well. Back then, he was doing the athletic director and also the head football coach. So he was able to get some when he needed something. He was able to get it.
Who was the defensive coordinator in Mississippi State for so long? I can't think of his name right now.
Oh, wow.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm sorry. I cannot recall that.
Bubba, do you know you tend to know everything?
I'm sorry, you said the defensive coordinator when?
In Mississippi State under Jackie Sherrill for a long time.
Gosh, no.
He was the guy that blitzed all the time. I know that.
I was going to say at one point in time, I'm not sure if it's on Coach Sherrill's staff or not. Are you talking about the guy who also spent some time at Ole Miss? Was it Joey?
Tommy West.
I'm sorry?
He ended up at Memphis under Tommy West eventually.
Okay.
I can't think of his name, but he coached with Jackie Sherrill for a while and ended up at Memphis under Tommy West. There was a funny story. Mississippi State beat Memphis, and Coach Sherrill told Tommy West to, after I guess Mississippi State had a good day on offense, he told Tommy West post-game when they were shaking hands at the middle of the field, whatever the coach's name was, you be sure to tell him hello for me. And Tommy West said, "Ain't you damn messenger boy? You tell him hello yourself." It would have been a better story if I could remember the coach's name.
Coach Sherrill always had a plan, believe me.
No question. Hey, Coach, as far as talking about the different coaches and everything, right now with everything going on, how difficult is it to handle COVID-19? We were talking about the practices and the like, and I know that it's got to be hard because there's so much. There's obviously that being anxious. I know we're getting ready for first game and all that, but now there is some certainty, but yet it feels like there's still uncertainty in the room.
Well, I can't really respond to how it's working out in college right now. I know in our case in high school, we get to go out and practice, but we can't touch. So, it's kind of difficult when you're offensive lineman and a defensive lineman and you can't touch. So we do a lot of different things to try and simulate that. And then you have all the other, you have to clean the bags off and sanitize them and all that kind of thing. And so it's a lot of extra work. Obviously, there's times where there is contact. And so anyway, they do a good job. The coaches obviously wear face masks when you're in a closed area and those type of things. So it's the kids enjoy it though. They enjoy being out there. They enjoy being together. You can see how they're developing as a team, and I'm sure the excitement in Greenville is getting very high because it's getting close.
And Kyle, very, very quickly, the guy you were trying to think of, I had the Joe Lee part. I knew the Hines.
Joey Dunn.
Yes, I knew. I had the Joe Lee part. I said Joe Lee Hines. I knew that didn't sound correct. It was Joe Lee Dunn.
Joe Lee Dunn. You tell Greg Sherrill, Tommy West. You tell Joe Lee. I said, hey, Tommy, I think you're messing your boy. You tell him your damn self.
And he had been at Mississippi State from '96 to '02. I think prior to that, he had been at Ole Miss as head coach, and like you were saying, he was at Memphis from '03 to '05.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The coach, you know very well, the college as far as the coaches fraternity is very, very small, and it's kind of like a small town. And you better be careful. You're one. I don't think that's ever burned a bridge, but I'm sure if there's some that have that, that gets around very quick, like being in a small town, right?
Well, there's everybody. I think things have changed so much in our society, and not going to get political, but just how things are, the social media, it's just like you got to be very, very conscious and careful where you go and who you're with, because somebody will snap a picture and put it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, and even though you might be innocent, you are guilty because of social media. And it's very difficult. Very difficult. You have to be very careful in what you do.
Yeah, absolutely right. And also, another thing about social media has been driving me crazy here lately, Coach. Everybody knows everything that doesn't know anything about anything. They're an expert on every topic, but don't know anything about it. But they're going to give you their opinion on it.
Well, and it's hard to. You're never going to win that because they got the chalk last, and they're always going to be right. There's been a number of coaches been fired because of the social media, obviously, and that's why you have to be, like I said, be very conscious of what you're doing and where you're at.
Also, there was one AD that was fired because of social media.
I'm sorry, sir.
He said there was a AD that was fired because of social media, close to home. But anyway, we'll leave it at that. This is a family show, I know. But Coach, I was going to ask you too about speaking of coaches at A&M. What do you think about with Jimbo Fisher?
Jimbo, we were together at LSU.
That's right.
And Jimbo is he's like the mad scientist. He's a great person, excellent football coach, and he's always football. Believe me, he's all football, and his success will come there at Texas A&M. Obviously, unbelievable facilities and a lot of great support, and the people there are good people, and he's going to have success there.
Are you surprised that he had so much success at Florida State, and then he had one season that was below, par. I think
I couldn't believe it.
Season they went to the Independence Bowl, and the whole fan base turned on him, and he said, "I'm out." Were you surprised to see them turn on him like that at Florida State that fast?
Well, there were some other underlying circumstances.
Okay.
And I think there was something, like in a lot of cases, when you're Florida State being known for great football and all that, there were some things facility-wise, et cetera, that were promised. And like in many cases, they didn't come through with that. And there were some other situations also. But anyway, I think when you look at those programs, the potential at Texas A&M is just phenomenal. And going into the SEC, it made it more difficult, but I think it gave them the opportunity to recruit Texas over the University of Texas, which was you were always the stepchild in that situation. And I think it's given them an advantage. I really do.
Definitely.
Coach, speaking of facilities, back home in Greenville, you've coached on the staff at East Carolina. We've been dealing with obviously crazy weather, including we're not the weather objective, but Tuesday, 2 potential hurricanes in the Gulf Coast, which has never happened before, 2 at the same time. But speaking of weather, how important we've been preaching for a long time about an indoor practice facility here on this show for next month makes 2.5 years we've been doing this thing. And how can we get that done? Is there, I mean, I know you don't have a crystal ball and everything, but I think it's really important. I'm hoping that administration will put that as the number one priority.
Well, I think it is very important. And when you have the weather like they have, not only the storms and all that, but even the heat. You don't have 2-a-days now, but you have a practice and you have a walkthrough. And you can, if you have a facility, like we had 2 indoor facilities at Texas A&M when I was there last. And so we would go practice in the morning when it's somewhat cooler. And then when we had walkthroughs, we would go into the indoor where you didn't put the stress on your players as much. They obviously didn't have the issues with losing a lot of weight. You had a environment where it'd be learning what you want in your walkthroughs. So, you know, you can always second guess why you put so much money in something and why you didn't buy that, but really think that East Carolina needs indoor facility, and it can also help other sports as well, not just football. Some of the other sports can utilize it in when there's an environment, the weather is not conducive to them practicing outside.
Coach, that makes me want to ask a question. We recently had a large donation from Grady White Boats, biggest donation in East Carolina history. And I don't know how those decisions were made, but the decision was made to build a new weight training room, a new training facility on campus. So we would have 2, and it would free up the Murphy Center for football only, and the rest of the athletes would have this new center to use. I know your football, it was your focus, not the other sports. But if you, I mean, without it's overstepping your bounds, I guess, are you surprised that that's what they chose to use the money for versus an indoor practice facility?
I'll be honest with you, I wasn't aware of that, so I'm not really familiar. Have no idea where they're going to put it. Are they putting it by the stadium someplace, or?
It's out near, Coach. They're talking about what we're hearing is somewhere. They don't have an exact location, but it's somewhere in the vicinity of where all the track and softball field and all that.
The Olympic Sports Complex.
I got you. Well, I'm sure there was a lot of thought put into that. I'm sure Mr. Gilbert has a long-range plan, and just don't really have enough to speak about, enough knowledge about this to comment on it.
Was it an issue? I guess football would have priority with the Murphy Center anyway, but did you notice it being an issue for other sports trying to get into the Murphy Center when the football program needed it?
Gosh, I don't know the day-to-day operations that they have, and Big John, I mean, he works his tail off, and I don't know how that works out with his other people that he has, and how, when you're trying to focus on 90 guys, it's a little bit difficult. And so I'm sure having separate workout places would help facilitate that particular situation.
As far as as far as facilities are concerned, are there other player amenities that you would like to see? I mean, I know things have changed since when you were a player, but we're in a different age now where player amenities seem like to be including the practice facility. But what other things would you like to see for the student athlete?
Well, I think they've moved and done a lot of really nice things for the players with the locker room and the players' lounge. I think that they're working hard to try and upgrade the academic situation. It's a little bit somewhat crowded at times there. I don't know how much has changed since I've left, but I think that's something that would help them. Also, getting into just my personal deal, the having opportunity to be around, have a sports psychologist around. Not that the players are having issues like that, but you help learn more about how to teach them not only football, but the academic part of it too.
And I would imagine right
Yeah,
now with COVID, having a full psychologist would be a huge benefit.
So there's a lot of good things that they've done. And I'm sure that, like I said, Mr. Gilbert is a guy that has been around programs that had a lot of things that helped the players. And I'm sure he has a short list of things that he'd like to get done for them.
Hey, Bubba, speaking of former players, I know that Norman Quick, great Pirate, he's chimed in a couple times. I want to put that up for Coach Doll if we can here on the screen. And that was right before the show, Coach. He chimed in. Can't wait. Great man and coach from Norman Quick. And also said we have to have an indoor practice facility.
Yeah. Norman's an excellent coach in his own right. And he's at over in Myrtle Beach, enjoying that weather over there, I'm sure. And he's a good man. Norman's a great representative of what East Carolina can do for people.
Coach, in addition to Norman Quick, a couple of your former teammates have chimed in, not on the comment section, but I was texting with them. Greg Burke, who you know very well from Raleigh, and a good family friend of ours, and then also former East Carolina quarterback who's been on the show, John Kazaza.
Yeah, well, we played. John was a senior quarterback when my first year here, and then of course Greg. We played together for 2 years, and good people, and the teammates that I have so many great friends and teammates from those 2 years and 3 years really. And not only just teammates, but there's some good friends out of school that just became lifelong friends, and very appreciative of that experience that I had at East Carolina.
And Coach, as far as I know, you've been around different big programs around the nation, like we were talking about LSU and obviously A&M and Notre Dame. And I know it's your alma mater and you're biased, but how do you feel about Pirate Nation?
Well, I think there's a lot of good things that are happening. Obviously, the virus kind of sidetracked a lot of things. The thing that, just as me personally, the social media has, back before they had social media, there was such great student body participation in the games. And what I see now with social media is that there's a distraction there, that it's not as strong as it once was. And that was one of the great things that I thought. Obviously, the stadium wasn't as big, and but the student body was so actively involved in the games. And that's one thing I wish could improve and really help the program.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, when you had I was like, what else, Coach, what else are you going to do on a Saturday or whatever day we play than to go to the football games? I remember many times when I was a student in East Carolina, and that was like the thing to do. Like you planned your whole week around that ball game and the partying and all the crazy stuff that I thankfully don't do now. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I mean, rest on Sunday. But I mean, when it came to that ball game, you didn't miss that ball game. It didn't matter. There were times in the rain and different crazy stuff that we did. But in my time, the student section was sections 16 to 18, where Bubba sits now. And that area was packed.
Well, and you're right about the pregame activity starting on Thursday. Thursday and Friday, and then it led up to Saturday's game. But I'm sure things will they're always looking for ways to get those student bodies back involved, and I'm sure that the administration will find that.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, and it's such a simple thing that I've seen. Alabama, of all places, did it, and ODU put it in their new stadium, is the LED light shows that they do in the fourth quarter after.
Yeah,
love that.
I know Bama, I think, turns out all the lights at the start of the fourth quarter now, and this big light show. And of all places, I never thought those guys would do that. They're such traditionalists. But I think that's something that East Carolina should look into. I think it's funny what'll get people to come out. I think the students would come out for that.
No, I think there's a lot of different ideas going around, and they'll get that going.
No doubt. Bubba, I know you want to talk more about the career, right, for Coach Doll?
Well, before we touch on your time in the NFL with the Denver Broncos, where you had a lot of success, even though you weren't able to bring home the Lombardi Trophy, just talk about back in '72, the Pirates went 9-2. Just what are your memories of that season and winning the Southern Conference title?
Well, we had, obviously a very good year. Our defense, first of all, that team had 8 seniors is all it had. And so it was very young, but a very talented group of young players. And the defense was fortunate where we had some really outstanding games to kind of build the confidence and get those young players confidence. And so we had some good matchups, good games, exciting games. Unfortunately, we lost to State and Carolina were the 2 games, and it was a very in our mind it was a exciting season because of winning the conference championship, and it was there's some memories there that kind of we joke about, but they were pretty cool.
And Coach, one of the things modern day that surprises me is how there's some in our fan base that don't appreciate that Appalachian State game. But back at your time, I know that in the SoCon, they were one of our biggest rivals, right? Back in the day.
They certainly were. In fact, if I remember right, they ran the wishbone back then, and so that was a big challenge for our defense. And anyway, it came about, and we had victory there, and it was a big win for us in Appalachian State.
Bob, did you want to talk about his time in the NFL?
Yeah, that's what I was let Bubba talk.
Sorry, my computer froze there for a moment, but no, as far as those years you spent with the Denver Broncos, just talk about how that opportunity arose and what your years in Denver were like.
Well, it was a year that we at LSU when we won the national championship, and initially I was interviewed for the special teams coordinator job, and I didn't get it. So I thought, well, God didn't want me to have that. And so I went back, and then about 2 weeks later, they called me back and said that they had a position as a defensive assistant, not a pure position coach, but a defensive assistant. So it was something that I always thought about doing. I wanted to do it. My wife was good with it. And so we went there, and the first year was somewhat difficult, just kind of getting used to the schedule. It's kind of like you got to realize that in the NFL, it's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And if you try and do what you did in college, not so much the X's and O's, but your work ethic. We got done with 5 preseason games the first year, and I'm thinking, crap, we would have been almost halfway done with our season, and we're just starting, But anyway, things worked out, and I became a actual position coach the second year. I had it was a great experience, had some really talented linebackers. The only problem was we lost to Pittsburgh to go to the Super Bowl, and it was wasn't one of our better performances, but did get to go to the Pro Bowl, which was a great experience for my family, and that was pretty cool. And then the next year we had quarterback change halfway through the season, and we went from, I think we were 6-2, and they made a change, and we went 3-5. So we didn't make the playoffs, and so some different things happened. A lot of times, there's things in that league that you can't control. It's all about the money,
Absolutely. Coach, I had one more thing before we wrap this up. Rule was just passed by the NCAA to allow kids to have an extra year of eligibility due to COVID-19. So if you're a senior, for example, you can come back in 21 even if you play the full 2020 season. So everybody from freshmen to seniors, as of right now, is getting another year of eligibility, which is perceived as a positive thing, as it is. But if you're a coach, could that become a problem with managing your roster? That's going to put a lot of guys that are eventually going to be eligible for grad transfers you're going to have kids who maybe thought they were going to get a chance to play quarterback in a year that are now that senior quarterback may come back for another year. So how do you think coaches are going to manage that?
To me, that opened up a big can of worms. I understand why they're doing it. I would have to know if I still get my full allotment of scholarships, because I mean there's been a lot of work put in by all the colleges of the recruiting part of it, and you're offering these freshmen to be scholarships, and then all of a sudden they say, well, you can't have it because this guy's staying, and golly, I don't really look forward to seeing how that works out. That's going to be very, very difficult.
Yep.
Coach, I want to talk about, before we let you go, about your high school opportunity. I know you had a chance to move back to Baton Rouge to be with your family and to be closer to your grandkids and kids. Can you talk about your high school opportunity and being with your family?
Well, it's been really a transition, really a good transition. There were some other things. We had plans to move to Baton Rouge to be around our grandchildren. There were some things that I was looking into, but the virus kind of put a damper to that. And then I saw an opportunity to get back in the classroom and teach and coach again. And so it's at Walker High School. It's about a 20-minute drive for me from where we live, and it's a small town, but it's a one high school town. Very, very good facilities, great leadership in the administration, and the head coach is one of those up and coming guys that he looks a lot and reminds me a lot of Will Muschamp. I mean, and he's a big LSU guy too, so that helps a lot too. And it's a good experience. Like I said earlier, the virus and teaching in the school, it's very challenging. I have a lot of respect for the teachers that have been teaching the last few years, because it's a tough deal, but it's a rewarding deal.
Coach, are the kids impressed when they find out you coached at LSU and Notre Dame and Texas A&M, or they don't care at all?
There's been some comments. They asked me some questions, and they very respectful, very respectful.
You were talking about Muschamp. You worked with him at LSU, didn't you?
Yes. He was the coordinator those 2 years I was there. Yeah. So I always felt Will and Lincoln were two guys that were so talented at such an early age. And they just had a great feel for the game, and obviously they've been very successful.
Coach, you reminded me of I thought I was finished, but one question I did want to ask you is that about Lincoln Riley and him becoming an offensive coordinator with Coach Ruff at such an early age, them having that prior relationship at Texas Tech. Just talk about the intangibles, not so much the X's and O's, which Lincoln's obviously great, but talk about those other things that makes him an excellent head coach.
Well, he understands the game so well. He understands the type of offense that he wants. I think he does a very excellent job of relating to players. He did the field to call the plays at the right time during the game was just phenomenal. And he's obviously his success speaks for itself. Great person, great family man. I'm real happy for him. I really am. And he'll be at OU for a long time, long as he wants to be.
Like him a lot, and certainly there's a lot of Pirates on that staff, or have been for sure. I know Ruff came back to NC State, so to be closer to his dad. But Coach, thank you so much for your time. I know that you've been very generous with us for 50 Pirates in 50 days. Thank you for all that you've done for us in Greenville, and we hope that you enjoy your time there with your grandkids, and obviously they're in Baton Rouge.
Well, we got a big swim day today, so before those storms come, we're going to go out swimming. So we're going to have a good time. I appreciate
Enjoy
it, guys.
Take care.
Thank
all
you.
right, Coach Kirk Doll, appreciate him very much for 50 Pirates in 50 days. Appreciate Coach, and guys, it's great to have him on. I've always thought a lot of him, and you learn a lot being around a great coach like him with all the different coaches he's coached for. But obviously, he has the Pirate pedigree, and glad, appreciate everything that he's done for ECU.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, Bubba, you played high school football at a high level. If you had an assistant coach on your team and you found out he had coached at East Carolina, at LSU, and Notre Dame, you'd have probably lost your mind.
Yeah, certainly an excellent opportunity for those guys, a tremendous resource, and so much knowledge and so many experiences. I'm sure they'll definitely benefit from it.
Yeah.
No question about it. Great to have him on. And I know, guys, we've got a huge week ahead, Bubba, don't we? Before we go, we've got some great programming to tell everybody about.
Yeah, we do. Tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, right here on Facebook and YouTube, we'll be joined by the son of Joe Pa, Jay Paterno. He played as a backup quarterback for the Nittany Lions back in the day, and also spent, I think it was, something like 17 years on his dad's staff. And now he's actually on the board of trustees at Penn State. So he has a book coming out, and we'll talk about that. I actually had another one prior to that. So we'll touch on both of his books on Tuesday night during the 7 o'clock hour. We'll talk to Dave Ryan of the CBS Sports Network. And then around 7:30, we'll be joined by the Athletics' Chris Vanini. He does an excellent job of covering college football for them. And then busy week for us certainly didn't intend on it being this busy, but due to availability of guests and stuff, making it happen. On August 26th, which is Wednesday night, Mac McCarthy, who also has a book coming out. Look forward to talking to Coach Mac. We had him on the show back when this quarantine started, maybe April or so. And then the second part of that hour, Mike Golden, who was the strength coach for Skip Holtz, and then also in the first year of Ruffin McNeill, he and H-Rob, our buddy Harold Robinson, will join us. We'll see if Coach Rob has the ceiling fan going as his picture this time instead of his face. And then on Friday night on 50 Pirates in 50 Days, we will catch up with East Carolina legend, Hall of Famer George Kuntz.
You know, Bubba, in wrestling, that's called hot shot in the territory. When you overbook all in 1 week and you put this huge card together and you're getting the crowd up, you're getting the numbers up, so you're hot shot in the territory. Closing it out with George Kuntz Friday night. I got a pitch for George Kuntz. I got a job offer for him. We'll see if he takes it on behalf of the university.
We need him to. I know he's originally from Craven County, and certainly there with that West Craven. We need him back home.
I'd love to see if he has any interest, and maybe we shouldn't talk about this before. And he might not want to come on, but I'd love to see if he would be interested in being the executive director of the Pirate Club. I mean, that's just I would love it. Idea I came up with. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. And he may be making a lot more money than that job would pay, but we'll talk to him about it if he's willing to talk about it. And guys, it's hard to believe as we close this out, this should be game week. We should be getting ready to play a game next weekend. It's the 29th, and we should be getting ready to play the Marshall Thunder and Herd, and we're not. We are, but it's delayed by a couple weeks, and just crazy to think about. This should be game week, and there is one college football game next weekend, an FCS game between Austin P and somebody. Bubba, do you know?
I do. I don't recall exactly, but I remember hearing that in the last few days.
Austin P and their opponent. It's next Saturday. It's the FCS kickoff game, and I believe it's played in Montgomery. I believe it's a neutral site game. And so that'll be on ESPN next Saturday night. So next Saturday night, no Pirate football playing, but there will be college football on your TV. And hopefully, guys, we'll get the good word in the next couple of days that we are going to return to practice. And that's even if we go. And that's something else. And I posted a video of it on our Facebook page. But in the non-ranting form, I'll say it here, guys. Our chancellor said on Henry Hinton show, Talking the Town on Friday, he made it very clear that even if we go online only with classes for undergrad, that we are going to continue with football because UNC and NC State did it. And his quote was, why would we be any different than them? And guys, breaking news. East Carolina's moving undergrad online. Just broke. That's
All right, there you
breaking right now. We will break it here on the Sports Objective podcast. East Carolina taking undergrad classes online. You have any information on that, Jessica, besides that?
Well, the thing about it is not really.
Starting Wednesday, undergrad classes online. There will be no classes Monday or Tuesday at all. And then Wednesday, all undergrad is going online.
Well, here's the thing with that. It's official now, but most of the college professors, it was volunteer anyway. Most of them were doing online classes anyway. So I'm glad they made it official, but that's been going on since the start. Most of the classes were online anyway. So
was there a statement released directly about athletics with that statement, Jessica?
we don't have
nothing about athletics, so people will speculate this. You'll hear endless speculation until a release is made about how there ain't going to be no football now. That's not the case, people. Until you hear somebody say Pirate football's canceled, that does not mean Pirate football is canceled.
We're fine.
And that opponent that we cannot think of, Kyle, because I know you and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't know how we forgot. I'm wearing one of their colors that is Central Arkansas. And John Thompson's alma mater.
Yep. Central Arkansas is going to play 2 games in 1 week before we even tee it up. They're going to play against Austin Peay Saturday, then turn around and play Thursday night against UAB.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, you always hear breaking news here on the podcast, gentlemen. As always, had fun having breakfast with Bubba. That was great. Here, 50 Pirates in 50 days. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a busy week, but I appreciate you both and appreciate your hard work. And we're going to have fun enjoying the rest of our weekend and I guess resting up for a busy week, right?
Yeah, and I would encourage the university, if anybody is watching this, go ahead and release a statement on athletics to end speculation. Release it. Go ahead and release the damn thing because you're going to have people speculating endlessly until a statement is made.
And then after that's made, they'll speculate. They'll criticize or speculate anyway. So there's always going to be speculation, unfortunately. All right, Bubba, Kyle, thank you so much for everything. The unofficial podcast of the Pirates, the 50 Pirates in 50 days, right here on the Sports Objective. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back tomorrow night right here on the Sports Objective. Good day, everybody. Go.